Joining me today is retired Lieutenant Colonel Michael Moffett. Mike, we're talking about Memorial Day and honoring the ultimate sacrifice of veterans, and really expanding it to sort of people, who've passed. But I do want to kind of go back to veterans issues and to the vets that are alive. What are the challenges that you see for vets today that we ought to be thinking about as well?
Well, it's a great question, John. And the veterans community is so large, and it is so varied. Different ages, different services, different conflicts, different reserve, active duty. So the veterans community is so segmented. It's really hard to mention or describe like a veterans issue that really affects all veterans because their experiences are so different. But
so is there something from, you served in Afghanistan.
Yep.
Are there issues that we ought to be aware of? I mean, for these young men, women that are coming back, over the last 15 or so years?
I think, and this again ties into both Veterans Day and Memorial Day. I think one of the best things you can do for somebody who served, especially if they saw some difficult things and were traumatized, to just remember them and acknowledge their experience and their service and make them feel welcome. I'm old enough, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and the draft, it was a different time. Now we have a professional volunteer service, and it's different. It's more insular. The veterans community, the military community is not mainstream like it was when everybody had to think about the draft.
When I grew up, every man, you turned 18, you register. Well, you do today. You register for the draft. But when I grew up, we thought that was a possibility, and it's a fundamentally different services.
It's very very different, and from the 60s and 70s when there was a draft. So, and that's a little bit of a concern because you have this community, the veterans community, the military community is not draws from the populations it draws from. It's not the same as I said earlier.
A random sample of
of the whole country, yeah.
Or nearly random, because if you were in college, you could get out. You could avoid the draft.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I had to register in 1973, just before the draft ended. One other thought before I forget, before we run out of time. My brother was a Marine. He's buried in the New Hampshire Veterans Cemetery in Boscawen, and my mom, decorates, helps put the flags up there every year. Last year, the union leader actually got her picture putting flags up. And so that act of just visiting cemeteries and putting flags up is a wonderful way for people, or just visit. If you've never been to the Veterans Cemetery in Boscawen, so beautiful, so much history there. It's an amazing place, beautiful place. So if you've never visited that cemetery in New Hampshire, you need to. It's a special, beautiful place.
And you talk about that. The other thing I think just comes to mind is every town has a memorial to the historically major conflict, starting with the Civil War. That's really when it started. And just to look at the names of the people that are on there, and every little town has that. You've got these big, you've got the cemeteries, but it's just scattered throughout, and it's part of our culture.
Sure is.
You can see, really.
And I hope that the young people, as they tool around town and see these monuments from the different wars, going back Civil War and even earlier, I hope that they wonder, okay, why is that there? Why is that statue there of this old soldier or this monument with names on it? I hope that people wonder about that. And Memorial Day is a great time to specifically talk about, okay, why is the town square have these monuments, and what do they mean?
Yeah, and I'll bet you if you go and you look at most towns, you'll see names, and you'll still see names that you can find in the phone book, the last names.
Every town, my hometown, there's certain names that go back generations, and they're still there. You see certain names, and they make you think of a town, for sure.
And that's maybe a good way just to think about the day.
Yes, it's family, it's country, it's the past, and it's the future too.
Well, thanks so much, Mike. We're out of time.
Thank you, John, for shining some light on an important day.
And it's our pleasure. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Capital Connections, your weekly access to politics and policy along the I-89 and I-91 corridors and how it impacts your life in our region. If you have an idea for a future show or a comment, please send me an email. And remember, please join us at the same time next week for another edition of Capital Connections.